Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to focus on the flexibility and mobility of our spines. Let's get started. We're going to start in a seated position as we reach up overhead, folding over towards our toes, and then we're going to restack the spine one bone at a time. Our shoulders are going to be the last thing to reach the top. As we reach the arms up overhead, rolling forward towards our toes, restacking the spine starting with the low back, middle back, upper back until our neck and head reaches the top. Again, we exhale as we forward fold, reaching towards our toes. I'm gliding my fingertips over the top of my legs to just guide my spine up one bone at a time. Coordinating our breath here with our movement, exhaling to fold, inhaling to restack our spine. At the top, I take another inhale as I reach up overhead. Forward fold, right down towards our toes, and then we restack the spine once again here. We're going to come into a seated position with those palms pressing right below the thighs. We take an exhale to round our spine. Inhale. Another exhale here as we round the spine. Inhale for our extension. We want to envision a magnet pulling that upper mid back straight back away from us as it pulls the crown of our head towards the opposite wall. Working on that flexion and extension of the spine. Even rounding all the way down to the tailbone to get that full flexion and extension of the spine here. And we're also coordinating the breath with these movements as well. We're going to move on to our bridging here. So I'm coming down to a lying position with my knees bent, separated hips width distance apart. Feet and palms planted into the mat here. I want to begin by tucking my pelvis and then scooping up one bone at a time until I reach my high bridge. And then I lower down one bone at a time. Take an inhale, exhale to scoop the pelvis up one bone at a time, all the way up into your high bridge, and then right back down. Same way you got up there. Scoop the pelvis up one bone at a time, and we want to make sure that the knees, hips, and shoulders are in alignment, that we're not flaring our ribs up a little higher. We're keeping a nice straight line from knees all the way down to the shoulders. Your tailbone will be the very last thing to touch as you untuck your pelvis, returning your spine to neutral. And then you scoop the pelvis up again, keeping those palms and heels planted firmly into your mat and still coordinating the breath with your movements. Now we're going to go into our hinge bridge. So we're lifting the hips straight up into a flat back motion. Still pressing the palms into the mat, heels pressed into the mat. And we also want to make sure again that the knees, hips, and shoulders stay in alignment as we lift up into that high bridge so that we're not flaring our ribs open at the top. So we take an inhale, exhale to lift up into that high bridge. And then inhale, exhale to lower back down. I'm drawing the knees into my chest, my forehead up to my knees to scoop myself into a nice tight ball. Exhale to draw the fingertips away from the toes, and then I circle myself back into that tight ball. And then I'm flowing through here, just reaching the fingertips away from the toes, drawing the knees in to scoop myself into that tight ball again. Just releasing some of the tension from those bridging exercises we just completed. Lowering myself down, I'm drawing my knees to the right, turning my head to the left for a spine twist here. You can let the hands rest by the sides, or you can draw them up into this cactus position like I'm doing. And I'm just lightly pressing my palm into my knees to give a little extra rotation. Draw everything back to center, and then we're just going in the opposite direction. Trying to keep my knees stacked on top of each other so I can get that full rotation, full range of motion in twisting that spine. Let me draw everything back to center here, drawing the knees in so that I can come up to my seated position. We're going to extend the legs out along the width of our mat. I'm going to rotate and then reach over the toes, come back into my seated position, rotate opposite, and then reach over opposite toes. So here I'm just doing a little rotation and then folding forward. You'll feel a good stretch here in your hamstrings, as well as that rotation of the spine. So I'm separating the movements here. So I rotate first, and then I reach over my toes. And then I just like to finish it up with a nice forward fold. Restacking the spine here. We're going to come into our quadruped or all fours, making sure my hips are right underneath the knees, shoulders right over the wrists. And then I'm just rounding and curving the spine here for a little cat-cow. So that magnet again is pulling that upper and mid back up to the ceiling. And then the magnet pulls the chest down towards the mat. So I'm trying to get as much flexion and extension of the spine here that I can. And then we just send the hips back for a nice child's pose. Take a few breaths here in the center. Extend your right arm out to a T, and then just thread the needle here for some rotation added to our child's pose. And then we draw back to center. Let's switch sides. Extend the left hand out and then rotate and reach to the opposite side. Just taking a few breaths here. Really feeling that rotation in the spine. And we'll come back into our quadruped, tuck the toes underneath into a nice plank. Send the hips right up to the ceiling for a pike, pedaling the feet out. Releasing some of that energy. Pressing into the mat for a little more extension of the spine. Shoot back into your plank. And then back up to your pike. Pedaling the feet once again. And then I'm just drawing that left knee forward. Placing that shin flat on the mat and folding over for a pigeon. Just stretching here, the outer glute, maybe a little bit in the hamstring, opposite quad. Releasing that hip, extending back into my plank and then my pike. And now I'm going to switch to opposite sides. And if you have that flexibility in that outer glute and that hamstring, you can fold over here. One of my favorite stretches to just release the tension from the hips, maybe if you've been sitting for a majority of the day or walking, running, just a good release. Back into my pike here. And then I lower down from my plank for a little swan. So we press the palms into the mat. If you want to go into full extension here, you can. And then we lower down, forehead touches the mat, press the palms into the mat, extend the arms long into our extension of the spine. Take an inhale as we lower down. Exhale, pressing up into our extension. Then we're just pressing up into our quadruped to send ourselves back into that child's pose here once more. I'm going to come into a Z sit. Placing my right palm down, left arm extends into a T, and then we reach up and over the ribs for our mermaid. You want to envision before you reach over that you're lifting and extending the spine and then reaching over. So I'm not collapsing in the waist as you can see here. And then I'm just opening up my chest to the ceiling to add some rotation. You can bring both palms down to the floor and add a little bit of extension as well, opening up the chest. And then we release that rotation, coming back to center. And now we're going to do the same on the opposite side. So Z sit, placing the palm down onto the mat, reaching up and over the ribs, and then back to center. Inhale, exhale, reach up over the ribs, and return back to center. So just a lovely lateral bend so that we can move our spine in all directions today, rotating the chest up to the ceiling and then back to center. And then we'll release that to come to our seated position. Here you can just take a few moments to reflect on your practice, center your breath. I'm seated in a crisscross position with my palms resting on my knees. And then I reach up overhead and bring my palms back to center. Thanks for watching.